Hey, I'm Stegall. This is Stegall the Show, and I have an amazing guest with me today. We're going to be diving into some real serious topics, from race to raising autistic children to just adversity in general. We also talk about Jesus, politics a little bit, baby. We talk about it all. I can't wait. Let's get started. I kind of want to talk about what it was like being this girl. So take yourself back to being just a child, right? The earliest part of your life that you can remember. There's so much innocence about being a child. Mm-hmm. And just having this moment, if you can remember when that moment was, that you realize that I am different than a lot of my peers, probably the majority of your peers, in the sense that you're not black, you're not white, mm-hmm. You're a mixture of black and white.
Right. The earliest I can remember was probably middle school aged, and I remember this particular incident vividly. My dad was driving me to school, and I got out of the car, and one of my white friends, a little guy, he looked at me and he goes, "Lily, I didn't know your daddy was white." And I'm like, well, I didn't know he was white either, you know? I mean, this is all I know. I didn't know he was white.
So you wouldn't have looked at your dad and said, my dad's a white man.
No, especially because my dad never claimed to be white. Mm. He's never claimed to be white. And I mean, technically, he's a mixture of white or Welsh and Cherokee, now that we know, but he always thought there was black in his history. And I don't know where that happened. I don't know whether or not, maybe back when grandfathers and slave owners and things were in the mix, maybe somebody was taken advantage of, and you keep that quiet because that's shameful. And you say, no, this is your dad. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't know where it happened, and like I said, I don't think he even knew.
I wonder how much, like when that kid said that to you, because I'm trying in my mind to go back to like the beginning of your story on this specific topic, right?
Right.
To get a feel for where it started and how it naturally has evolved and mm-hmm. been a huge part of mm-hmm. becoming the human that you are, right?
Right.
Our stories are all so unique and special.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how much, like that kid asking you that question that made you have to question, mm-hmm. I wonder how much we're shaped by the people around us, including our parents telling us things and the kids around us that notice the difference, that in your mind you really never even thought anything was different, or there was no minority in your mind. This was just normal. Yes. You loved your mom, you loved your dad, you were living life, mm-hmm. playing, and I wonder how much we're shaped and influenced by the people that we respect to teach us and guide us in life, and then our peers.
Exactly. Exactly. I wonder too.
And I think it makes me, because I'm not a parent, it makes me really question how difficult it must be to be a parent. Because you hold so much power mentally over these little ones. Oh, yeah. They're going to grow up to be adults, you know? Let's talk about being a parent, because you are a parent.
I am.
You've got two beautiful little boys. We'll say little young men. How old are they?
Okay, so we have Gabriel, and he's 9, and Gavin is 12.
So 9 and 12. And both of your boys, this is very important, both of your boys are both autistic.
Okay, so Gabriel, the youngest, is autistic. Gavin is the oldest. He's my 12-year-old. And he has never been professionally diagnosed, but I believe that he falls somewhere on the spectrum, and I'm leaning towards Asperger's.
Okay.
And the only reason that I've come to this conclusion is because when I was doing all of the research and educating myself on autism after I found out about my youngest, I noticed a lot of the traits that were listed were things that my oldest had always done, but because he was my first child, I didn't think there was anything different about it. I didn't know any different, but I do feel like they both are definitely on the spectrum.
So people that are autistic or parents that have autistic children clearly know what autism is and what that means and what that's like. For somebody that doesn't know what that means, what is autism?
Okay, so autism is it's a disorder,
Okay.
Neurological. So it basically means that they will react differently, think differently. They may have issues with developmental delays and cognitive delays. I know sometimes they walk on their tippy toes. Sometimes they have a really hard time with socializing or social behaviors. They like to play by themselves. They kind of get in their own little zone. And it can be difficult. Sometimes they have sensory issues where you can't go to the movie theater or you can't go to the grocery store just because of the sound of the wheels of the cart being too much for them to take in. So it's a long list of things that, can be affected. But
a big way to know if you're a parent that
Yes.
has a child is sensory overload.
Yes.
Too much overwhelming them at one time.
It can be crowds. I'm a big fan of going to the Jockey Lot, which is like a flea market. If you're not, you know.
I love the Jockey Lot.
I love the Jockey Lot. So we go to the Jockey Lot and they have this it's set up in a way that they have these garage doors on each of the little stands. And one day my youngest son was like, oh my gosh, like there's so many garage doors. And at that moment, I knew that he was having a sensory issue with the garage door. He was handling it well, he was coping with it, but as an autism parent, you know that he's verbal now and he knows to tell me about things that are bothering him or things that he's, feeling unsure about.
So depending on the spectrum of autism, or not even the spectrum, you tell me, is there a spectrum that makes you, when you have autism, not be capable of having verbal conversation?
Absolutely.
So it's about that spectrum, the
Yes.
level in which, okay.
Yes, you can be mildly autistic or you can be very severe. Gabriel didn't speak until 4. I never heard him say mommy until 4.
What was that like, hearing him say mommy for the first time?
I cried like a baby. I cried like a baby because I thought he would never talk. I learned sign language to communicate with him until that age, and I didn't think he was ever going to say mommy. So, it's one of those things where you hear people saying, oh my God, my kids call my name 1,000 times a day. Things like that, I have a feeling about, because I'm like, you say that, but trust me, if that ever happened, you would not be the same. It's hard.
What age, how old was he whenever he was diagnosed?
He was 2.
So you found out pretty early on.
Yes, he was 2. I noticed we took him to a birthday party, and it was a 2-year-old birthday party, and the little kids were running around, just a bunch of 2-year-olds, and they're telling their mom they want ice cream. I want to go over here, I want to do that. And I'm looking around like, how old is he? 2. How old is she? 2. And I'm like, well, he's 2. He's not doing that stuff. And at that moment, I'm like, uh-oh, something's happened. Something's happened. And it was a long road because at first my family and my friends were like, oh, he'll talk when he gets ready. He'll speak when he wants to. Don't worry about it. You're thinking too much. It's fine. But there is something that a mother is blessed with. And, it's that gut. And if you feel like something is wrong, you go get it tested. And so after a long wait, I went ahead and decided, let me just go ahead and get them tested. And they test everything. They test their eyes, they test their hearing, they test everything before they actually diagnose them with autism. So it's good. We've had early intervention. He had like therapy sessions once a week just to get him to where he is now. And now he's doing really well. He's mainstream in school, so he's in school with, or in class with peers that do not have any disability whatsoever. And he talks my head off. But I'm very careful not to say, man, I wish you would just stop talking. Like, I enjoy the fact that he can have a very long, detailed conversation with me about power lines and street signs and rules of the road.
I almost feel like, and I've always sort of had this feeling that whole spectrum of autism, or having like a version of it with Asperger's.
Right.
I almost feel like there's this like fine line between the fact that they're either a genius or just almost too smart for their own good.
Yeah.
And their brain can't handle it.
Yeah, I mean, they're direct links to geniuses.
So there truly are
Albert
links.
Einstein.
Yeah.
Genius.
So he was autistic.
Yeah, it's very, very likely.
What?
Yeah.
All right. So things seem to be better, right?
Better. And I'm glad you said better, because people ask me questions as if autism can be cured. Like, oh, so it's good now. You're fine.
It's over.
Yeah, you're good. He's fine. He's mainstream. Like, yeah, he's mainstream. Things are good, but he will always have autism. Forever. And just because the challenges that I have today are not the challenges that I had when he was 2, doesn't mean that life is grand for me. It's not, because now that he can talk, he can tell you exactly what's on his mind with no filter, because remember, we're dealing with somebody who doesn't really have social cues. So he's going to tell you exactly how he feels about every moment of every day.
So in a moment where he's very just straight to the point,
right,
it could be disrespectful in a sense. And then you have to decide as a parent, what is the line between this is who he is versus...
Right.
So what is the line? What is the line for you?
The line is...
You have to draw one, right?
The line is, when you get to the point where you're blatantly disrespectful, let's go back. He's very intelligent. And he knows when it's too far. And he still responds to that motherly look like, one more time.
Just the eye. Just one eye.
Just the look. It's the look, and it's the tone, and it's one more time. And then he falls back very quickly. He falls back, but it's funny. I try very hard not to treat him like he is disabled. And the reason why I try to treat him like he's not disabled, because he's not, number one. And number two, the world will not treat him that way. Nobody's going to look at my son and say he's autistic.
Is that the scariest part of being a mama to an autistic, or to 2 autistic boys? Getting them prepared to face this world as adults? Is that the scariest part, or is there something scarier than that?
I think that's the scariest part for probably any mother of any type of child. You always want to make sure that your kids are going to be able to survive when you're not here anymore. And you want to make sure that they're going to be okay. So I don't know that his autism changes that feeling for me. Of course, I worry about him being able to get a job. I don't worry about him driving, because clearly he knows all the rules of the road. So he'll be driving nothing else. But I'm concerned, but I don't know that the autism makes me more concerned about that than it would have been if he was normal.
If he watches this in 15 years from now and is able to look back, how old is he now? Your
He's
oldest?
not. Oh, my oldest,
The oldest is 12?
Yes, he's 12. And my youngest
So if he watches this later on and looks back at being a 12-year-old, what would you want to say to him? So fast forward 10, 15 years from now, what would you say to him?
I would say to my son, I would want to say that I love you very, very much. And everything that I had done up to that point was because of my love for you. And my just wanting for you to have the best life that you could possibly have. I want you to be happy, and I hope that you're happy. And I want you to be proud to have me as a mother.
Are you proud to be a mother of that boy?
Absolutely.
Those boys?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They are my light. I love them. I love them very much. They bring me a lot of joy.
All right, so let's I want to go back just for a minute to culture and stereotypes. I want to talk about culture and I want to talk about stereotypes. Okay. Before we came on camera, we were talking about the idea that in order for there to be a stereotype, there must be some sort of, at some point, a majority of people that acted a certain way, looked a certain way, did specific things to create this mold where society defined that stereotype, right?
Right.
So what we were talking about is how do we now press forward from this idea of a stereotype isn't always accurate. And
right.
For the person who is the stereotype,
right.
How do we encourage them that they don't have to fit that mold? So that's not necessarily a question, it's
right.
more of just conversation, but
right.
I'm just curious. So let's talk about being a mixed girl. Let's put a mixed girl, just for the purpose of an analogy, right. Let's put you being a mixed woman into a stereotype, okay. Right? So you, and there's a group of women that are mixed. Cool part about that stereotype is that none of them are probably the exact same mixture.
No.
Yet it can fall into a stereotype if we wanted to put it into one,
right?
Right. So as a mixed girl, do you think you fit the stereotype that society has defined for a mixed girl?
Honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know if I do. I mean, if I'm thinking clear enough, I would say that the stereotype would be light skin, pretty hair, quote unquote, good hair, good hair, light eyes, and no, these are not mine. These are light by cosmetically enhanced. But I mean, I just feel like maybe I wouldn't. People wouldn't look at me, and I don't believe people would look at me and say she's mixed. Because I don't look mixed.
What do you think you look like?
I look like a black woman. I look like a black woman. You look at me, you see a black girl.
When I look at you, I see a beautiful woman. And it is my absolute aspiration in life for us to look at each other and take away visually what we're seeing.
Right.
And let's stop worrying so damn much about the perception, the stereotype.
Right.
And let's get to the heart and soul of what humanity is and what God is. And that's love to me.
Absolutely.
What does love mean to you?
Love is acceptance. It is, just taking me for all of my flaws. All of my good parts, all of my bad parts, like taking all of that and being unconditional with it. That's what love is to me. Love is caring,
Patient.
And kind.
Kind. All right, so you're a hairdresser.
I am.
In hair school, did you think that you would be working in a salon as the only black girl, mixed girl,
Nope.
not white girl. What did you think was going to be your career in the hairdressing industry?
I mean, I definitely did not think that I would be in the salon that I'm in. I thought that I would just fall into, you know, the black hair salons. I really thought that that's where I would be working. And that was pretty much it.
So you work on my team at Stegall, the salon.
Yeah.
And in the very beginning, when we first started having conversations, we talked a lot about the fact that I had created a culture in which it is so much about inclusion and love and diversity. And because of that, my specific point of view in life is very much within a bubble.
Right.
So the only experience that I have with extreme adversity and diversity, even though I have all of that around me, we all have one thing in common, which is love, which is the solution.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
That's the solution to building a beautiful culture.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we talked about that I still saw as a division in the hairdressing industry was there's black salons and there's white salons.
Right.
And me and you talked about, I mean, this has been years ago, we talked about how we want to change that.
Absolutely.
Do you think that by doing what you've been doing in our culture at Stegall, the salon, that you're playing a role towards branching the black hair salon and the white hair salon together? Because that's stupid to me.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. It's always been that way. I don't know how it started. Well, I do know how it started. I mean, we all know how it started. It started because black people couldn't get their hair done, where white people got their hair done. All of those things led up to what we had to do. Now we just do it because that's what we've been doing. It's comfortable, you know. It's comfortable. So maybe I think that we need to be less comfortable in order to make a change.
Having a conversation like this,
having a conversation
is not
like
comfortable.
Absolutely. I have lots of guests. Most of my guests are black women. I definitely have white women, I have white men, I have black men, I have a array of guests, and when they come into the salon, I can always tell that at first they're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable because they look around, and the only thing that makes them comfortable is the fact that I'm black too. So they're like, oh, she's black too, I'll just stay in this one little corner and we'll conversate and I won't make any eye contact and I'll be fine. But once they start coming and they start getting more comfortable with the atmosphere and seeing that there's no difference, you're not being mistreated, you know, everybody loves you here too. So, I mean, I think that it just takes a step for people to feel like, okay, look, let me step out of my comfort zone and do something I wouldn't typically do. That's how you change.
Well, I commend you for a lot of things. Being an amazing mother, just always just being in a positive mood. I know there must be days where you feel like complete crap and you don't want to be happy, but you sure do fake it really well if you're not happy, because I've never been around you in all the years of knowing you and you not come in with a smile on your face. There's so much about the way that I think you've aligned your mindset to live in life that is something that I aspire to be more like. So tell me about your mindset. How do you wake up every day, obviously, and put a smile on? How do you do that? Is it because of all the adversity you face in your life?
It's because of what God tells me I need to do. And for me, I am all about, is it productive? Is it productive to my life? Is waking up with a chip on my shoulder because of yesterday's events worth bringing that into today? Today's a new day. I go to bed every night and I thank God for giving me one more day on this earth. And then when I wake up, I'm like, hey, I made it one more day. I got a lot to be thankful for. Somebody didn't have one more day. So I start out each and every one of my days with that on my mind. today is a blessing. And I like to make people happy. I like for people to smile. I like for people to be happy. I like to feel like something that I said made them feel good today. I don't know what it is about me wanting that, but it makes me feel good. I feel better when I feel like I've helped somebody else. And I can't help anybody else if I'm moody or if I'm bringing baggage from my life into theirs. That's not what I'm there for. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing at that moment. In that moment when I'm behind the chair, I'm serving you. I'm serving you. So whatever I've got going on, I'm not even thinking about that at the moment. When I'm doing people's hair, and people will laugh at this and they will say, that's a lie, you said that for the camera. No, I did. I literally pray for people while I'm doing their hair. Especially if I can tell that there's something on them. I am doing their hair and I am praying my pants off. That's why I get so quiet, because I'm in the middle of a prayer. I'm trying to pray for whatever breakthrough you need in your life to come to fruition. Like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I think that doing hair for me is more of my service for God. And people think, well, you're not in church. That's where you do your servicing for God. Not necessarily. You can service God from any position in life you want to. And I've chosen to use this as my way of saying thank you to God, being grateful, and I never know whether or not I will be bringing someone closer to God by my personality or by what's going on with me that day. If I'm in a good mood, if we're talking about the Lord, even if we never mention God's name, people should be able to feel His love and His light in me without me even saying His name. Yeah.
I think that and of course you know me and you relate so much as far as how we have a ministry in life.
Right.
You don't need a pulpit to have a ministry.
Absolutely.
And we're just blessed enough to get to do something we're passionate about, and it became our ministry, which is beautiful. Somebody that's not a Christian, how do you inspire them to know what love is, right? Because we define love as Christ's love. Somebody that's not a Christian, somebody that follows a different faith, atheist, believes in just the universe, how do you inspire them, if they need it, to know what your version of love is? Because it's got to be different if we're equating it to God, right?
Right. I mean, and then again, it doesn't have to be different. It doesn't have to be different. You can worship God, or you can have, some other outlook on what you feel like spirituality is, but love doesn't change. Love doesn't change. If it's true love, it's across the board. That's why, I feel like different religions, it all comes back to love and acceptance and treating people the way you want to treat them. If it bothers you to put God at the name of your love, so be it. But if it's love, it should be the same. It should be the same.
It boils down to humanity and the fact that that's why we're here, no matter what we believe spiritually.
Right.
Is that we're here to serve each other and have gratitude. And it sounds like that's what your mindset is.
Absolutely.
Is you live a life of servitude and with gratitude.
Absolutely. I mean, I would not call myself religious. I would call myself spiritual. I don't believe in being overly religious. People don't want to listen to you when you're religious.
You know what's interesting? Growing up, my mother was a hairdresser,
Right.
as you know.
Right.
And she always said, don't talk about two things, politics and religion. And here we are, talking about what could be considered politics. Apparently, I'll share that in just a second.
Right.
And religion. So actually, I want to actually dive into that.
Okay.
So I brought up the conversation via social media, asking the question to just people that are my friends on Facebook: have you ever experienced gender discrimination or racism, or have you witnessed it?
Right.
Okay. And one of my customers, who I adore and love dearly, actually responded saying, you know, is this about hair products or is this about politics? And while I know it's confusing that I'm not talking about hair products, because I know you know me as Bo, the hair product guy, this is my ministry, and God gave me a platform, and I'll be dang if I'm not going to use it to spread His love.
Right.
So that's what this is about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm more than just hair products, but I'm very thankful for my hair products, and I had a great time creating those and still having conversations with my customers.
Right.
But she also said, is this about politics? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really interesting because I know nothing about politics, like admittedly, right? So I don't have really any business talking about it. Mm-hmm. But when she said politics relating that to gender discrimination and racism, it really confused me. And it really made me start to think, I wonder if somehow, some way, the political system, whatever that means and whatever it does, again, I know nothing, but are we being sold that topics that truly affect everyday people in a real way is what politics is? Are we literally being sold that your story that you just told about adversity in life is political? Because to me that seems just human.
It is just human. It is just human, and it blows my mind that it would even have gone that far left. You know, it doesn't. I'm just as confused as you are.
Well, you know, and then I had somebody else say, and I love the interaction with people, the good, the positive, because I love perspective, I love point of view, and that's what this is about, is sharing very individual stories, and me trying not to push my beliefs too hard, other than God's love. That's the one thing I'll talk about it every day, all day. I had somebody else say that she never experienced racism or gender discrimination, but she did experience hate when she says that she doesn't experience racism. What taekwondo world are we living in? Where if you experience racism or something like gender discrimination, you experience hate, and if you don't experience it, you experience hate. How did we get so divided? When I think back, no matter what you believe in, if it was evolution, if it's God creating Adam and Eve from the sand, from the dust, surely we can all agree that it was one human quality that made our souls and our organs function, right? Whether it was evolution, whatever you believe in, at what point did these two things separate us from love? When and how? I just, it breaks my heart. It really does.
It is. It's hard.
And I think conversations like this and people like you being courageous enough to share your story is how we essentially just bring focus to real life stories by having real life conversations and being courageous enough to have the conversation, period.
Exactly.
Well, I love you very much. And I'm so thankful that you were here and you had the conversation with me. I hope that each of you will start to have more conversations in your life. If your family, if it's your friends, if it's your stereotype, if it's your community, whatever you want to call it, I challenge you to ask more questions, and I challenge you to listen. You never know what you're going to learn from somebody else's point of view or perspective. We're all in this together. The one thing I can tell you is we all have different adversities and circumstances, and we struggle every day, right? But the fact is that we all have that in common. It might be a different story and a different adversity, but we all have adversity. And together, through love, acceptance, understanding, we'll change the world. All right, so make sure you join me next week, because we're going to be having even more, even realer stories and conversations. Real people, real stories. That's what it's about. Love you guys.